Now, I would like to invite our second speaker of today's seminar, Mr. Gary GAO, to deliver a speech. Gary, can you hear us? Hello? Oh, that's fine. Okay. Mr. GAO is the partner of Beijing Zhonglun Law Firm's Shanghai office. He has extensive experience in cross-border litigation, international commercial arbitration and mediation, regulatory and compliance matter, domestic dispute resolution, crisis management and complex commercial litigation, corporate financing and restructuring, as well as foreign direct investment. Since his admission to the bar in China in 1995, Gary has helped clients dealing with numerous complicated transnational litigation, arbitration, and compliance cases. He has rich experience in helping enterprises and companies to mitigate those risks at the lowest level during the course of the investment structure design, risk control, contract negotiation, along with other daily legal matters. And the topic that Gary will share with us today is mediation in construction cases with Chinese parties. Mr. Gao, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, good. Hello, everyone. It's very good to meet you online. I'm Gary Gao, partner of Zhonglun Law Firm, Shanghai office. Today, I want to share with you about my observations about mediation in construction cases with Chinese parties. Sorry, I have some problem about I just can't do this. Sorry about that. First, I will give you an overview of China-related construction dispute. With the booming development of the construction industry in China, there has been a sharp increase of construction projects involving Chinese parties, no matter in domestic or in overseas. Accordingly, the amount of construction disputes rise constantly. With some experience as mediator in construction disputes, today I will share my observations on mediation in construction cases with Chinese parties. You can see at the beginning, I want to share with you some data to give you a brief picture of landscapes of Chinese construction disputes. You will see, on this chart, firstly, the monetary value of Chinese companies falling contracted construction project is huge. For example, in year 2021, the accomplished turnover of China's falling contracted construction projects reached 154.94 billion, and the amount of money of newly signed contracts reaches $1,667.68 billion. Secondly, the case value of litigations is huge too. According to our research, the number of court cases in last year is 14,000. Sorry, it's 141,000 more than that cases, and the total cases over the past decade are 3,742,000 cases. The line chart also shows the increase of the cases in these years. Besides, regarding arbitration cases, here I take the last year data of 3 leading Chinese arbitration institutions, for example. That is CTAC, Beijing International Arbitration Center, and SHIC. We can see their construction cases amounts for more than 10% of the total cases in each institution. Construction projects mostly bear the feature of complexity, professionalization, high values, and accordingly, high level uncertainty. A typical construction project usually consumes numerous types of materials, tools, and equipments, and engages different contractors, subcontractors, vendors, suppliers, specialists, consultants, supervisors, and managers. And each of the participates in the project with complex interactions, even with close purposes. To fulfill the task as time scheduled, thousands of activities are arranged simultaneously. However, not every project detail can be effectively planned before the work commenced. In addition, some areas demanding for infrastructure for construction projects may also sit in an unstable political environment. With such uncertainty, project details and the specifications may change, and the disputes may accordingly arise. Disputes are something that construction project participants will have to face during the life of a project, and it may even continue or occur long after project has been finished. And the typical claims usually related to defects, delay, variations to the work, no payment, and the damages caused later after completion. Then I'm talking about observation of using mediation to resolve construction disputes. As dispute has almost become a common phenomenon of construction projects, efficient dispute resolution is especially important because individuals and entities in most cases prefer to maintain a good relationship with the opposite party on a project and the construction, and also would like to keep it same for future projects. Mediation is inherently more amicable and flexible than litigation or arbitration, which helps repair the parties' damaged relationship compared to the proceedings of arbitration and litigation, which gives third parties the decision-making power to determine the facts of parties. Mediation, renders the power in the hands of the parties, facilitates the parties to negotiate and create a new agreement, incorporating mutually settlement, such as future business arrangement. A critical element of mediation is a settlement should be accepted by the parties that may not necessarily fair in the eyes of the third parties. In addition, confidentiality and the limited discovery requirements also provide benefits to the parties. In most jurisdictions, the information exchanged during the mediation cannot be further used in court or in an arbitration if no settlement is reached. Parties even don't want to have a settlement agreement in writing. Given the complexity of construction dispute, to have a dispute successfully mediated, finding a qualified construction mediator with the experience and knowledge who can win the trust of the parties within a short period of time to cut through to the issues and help the parties reach a mutually satisfactory compromise is the key. Sorry, I was told my voice is too low. Let me know if you cannot hear me clearly. Usually, construction project participants have different points. Each point. Some most care about profit margin. Some most care about the completion of the project as scheduled, which leaves rooms and possibility for mediation. Resolving construction dispute through arbitration and litigation, usually accompanied with time-consuming document production, damage assessment. In this regard, and based on my experience, construction disputes involve several parties with potential different liability are most frequently and successfully mediated. Those construction disputes include contractors' defective work, architects' defective plans and specifications, delays in project completion, payment issues, etc. For example, claims of construction defective work are often resolved in mediation. Things compared to a set of negatives in the litigation proceedings, such as extensive discovery, competing experts, underlying insurance coverage disputes. Mediation presents a more convenient and faster resolution by gathering all the interested parties for several forums to address liability, quantum, and insurance coverage issues, and resolve the wide range of disparate interests. As mentioned in the foremost, Chinese party has been more often involved in international construction disputes. And I believe a skilled mediator needs to be able to influence and guide party throughout the mediation process, which requires the mediator to not only doing homework regarding case specification, but also understand different concerns of the parties, especially the Chinese parties, to better resolve construction dispute involving Chinese parties through mediation. I would share several observations on some common characteristics of Chinese parties. Conventionally, Chinese parties dislike litigation and arbitration. Psychologically, they deem it's a bad luck one Inca case. Caring of reputation is commonly the most concern of Chinese party. But if must make a comparison between reputation and the profits, a state-owned company may concern reputation more than a private company. And normally, a private company prefer profits. The nature of Chinese party and the institutional culture rooted in it may also influence in resolving construction disputes, because state-owned enterprises are under supervision and inspection of anti-corruption and could incur personal liability. Even corruption is not an issue at all. The rationality of the concession made in the mediation will be challenged. By contrast, private enterprises care more about substantial interests. Therefore, they are willing to make concessions as long as losses can be avoided and minimized. In this regard, in most cases, mediation could be harder with a state-owned company than a private enterprises. Another characteristic of Chinese party in terms of decision-making patent also was noted. Rather than proceeding by resolving the sub-issues under the dispute one by one through a list of issues, Chinese party prone to think about a big picture by first go through issue list by making assumptions and making affirmed concession after evaluating the plausibility of each assumption. Consequently, several assumptions could be overturned in the last stage of mediation. Now I will share some observations on tactics that are accommodated and acceptable for Chinese parties. A most common used tactic can be touching the inching point of disputant, which can facilitate the concession of the parties. Examples including pointing out the weakness, such as invalid evidence, improper claims, and trace the root of deadlock. Sometimes the owner, due to the broken, cash flow chain, would unreasonably files a counterclaim to the contractor and refuse to concede, which lead to a deadlock. In this scenario, after pointing out the weaknesses of the counterclaim and provide solutions by suggesting less compensation, but speed up payment from owner and immediate construction from the contractor, the deadlock could be resolved. Then I turn to the third term. Another common used method is to suggest rethinking concession by hinting the weakness in future arbitration or litigation. By reviewing the case materials, mediator would usually have understandings in funding ability, weakness of evidence, lowest request or highest payment by disputants. In the mutual concession is almost concluded with the purpose of suggesting parties should rethink the concession. Mediator may hint one or both parties the reasons why their claims might not be supported in the arbitration or litigation or failed to be successfully enforced, even if they reject a compromise in mediation process. Although most disputes at heart are about money, however, they are often valuable items that may cost little to offer by different parties that play different roles in the construction project. A contractor claiming losses might be willing to accept structured payment or additional work in exchange the full amount of money that could be, claimed. An owner may be willing to accept correction of defective work or an extended warranty as an alternative for directly monetary compensation. The fourth part is views on future development of construction dispute mediation involving Chinese party. Mediation has been China's most popular method for resolving disputes and is an integral part of civil procedure in court system, as well as the arbitration. Although voluntary participation in professionally organized mediation has gradually gained acceptance, however, the acceptance of professional mediation is far lower than that of mediation organized by courts or arbitration in tribunal. And the reasons for this phenomenon may not only because the mediation organized by courts or arbitration institution is legally enforceable, but also the behavior patterns of judge mediator or arbitrator mediator are more credible to Chinese parties. In litigation mediation scenario, as provided by the Article 96 of the Civil Procedure Law, when hearing a civil case, a people's court shall conduct mediation on the basis of clear facts and distinguishing from right and wrong. In this regard, typically, the mediation process before the case is tried by the court is also an evaluative process in which the judge applies a set of normative values to help facilitate the settlement. In this process, the judge of the court takes primary responsibility for directing and performing mediation on the basis of evaluating evidence and discern right and right, to determine right and wrong. In this sense, arbitration mediations are of the similar case. However, Chinese party seems more accommodated to the evaluation-oriented mediation method. It's not only in China. Based on my experience in civil law countries, we have similar, traditional practices. Although a bad compromise is better than a good lawsuit, is also rooted in their culture background. However, an explicit or hinted criticism from the wrongdoing may provide a stronger motivation or rationality for concession. It's arguable that a judge or arbitrator conducts mediation because they could be prejudiced if the mediation fails and the case proceedings may be going on. Although Chinese-style mediation is somehow different from mainstream mediation in West countries, but as the most flexible alternative dispute resolution approach, in my opinion, there is no harm to incorporate several Chinese elements in the mediation of international construction disputes. For example, considering incorporating more mediator-directed fact-finding procedures in the mediation process guidance, selecting more Chinese mediator with experience as judge or arbitrator, and when the dispute involves Chinese parties, offer them more mediator candidates with such experience. That's my presentation. I think I fulfill my task within the time limitation. So I leave some time for the audience to raise questions, if any. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gao.
Yes, it's quite common. I have a question. The question one is it common to have the mediation clause in contract conditions of private or public construction projects in PRC? The answer is yes, because it's quite common. The reason is I have to separate two aspects when I answer this audience question. First, in private project, it's quite common that people will say, okay, if any dispute rising, during the period of construction, parties should solve the problem on amicable basis. If it cannot be solved by amicable negotiation, then people should pursue mediation by a third party. If not succeed, then the case will go to, for example, CTAC or go to the court. And in public constructions, they will require some like construction association or some reputable mediator to mediate their dispute. It's quite common to set mediation as a stage of dispute resolution. Even in some cases, I personally encountered arguments raised by parties relating to whether the case is ready to go to arbitration, especially. They will argue, say, you must go through mediation process first. Quite often in Chinese construction contracts, it will leave party or give party 30 days for mediation or negotiation before they can formally file a case in arbitration with arbitration institution or with the court. I wish I answered your question. And one additional point, arbitration tribunal in China, in PRC, also quite often required to give an answer to the parties or even give an order that whether they can jump into arbitral proceedings without mediation. That's a quite often argument raised by parties in PRC.
Okay, there's a second question. Mr. Gao, can you see it?
Let me see. I only see, now I see question 2. Do Chinese parties generally have mindset to resolve disputes by mediation before going to litigation? Yes, in construction projects, it's indeed very often. As I mentioned, in construction disputes, normally, the owner and the contractor are, bigger companies. They will have long-term cooperative relationship. They don't want to damage the relationship. And also they hate the uncertainty in arbitration or litigation. When they have to go to the court, for example, contractor will have concerns about whether the court is neutral. If neutrality is under doubt, they will prefer to be mediated. And also, Chinese practice will be, there are certain rooms for parties to compromise. For example, if a company, the owner, realize, the project could be delayed, and after dispute, maybe they will incur some repairing issues, maintenance issues, and the contractor will also concern the reputation because it sued the owner will make a trouble for the contractor in the future. It's Chinese tradition. I don't want to say it's right or wrong, but the owners will hesitate to grant a contract to a contractor, quite often sue the owners in the future. So My answer is mediation is quite often, and now we have a number of, well-recognized mediators working. Maybe I can use the word listed in reputable arbitral institutions or in some, industry associations. This pool of qualified mediators also facilitate the needs to pursue mediation before going for litigation. And I have to say, to us, it's quite a surprise because we assume that in this year, the dispute resolution team will be extremely busy and the income should increase dramatically. But unfortunately, it's not the case. And after the investigation, we realize that people, the industry players, they have hesitation to file litigation. And the current economic climate, because they're worried if they sue somebody, even win the case in litigation, but they cannot enforce the case. You may know, a lot of huge real estate companies, are suffering cash flow problems, even under reorganization process. That could be the reason people prefer mediation to maintain the relationship and try to get paid before the public realize the company is in trouble. That's my answer for you. Thank you.
Okay, there's another question. I think I'll read it out. Is that most PRC mediation you encountered are quasi-judicial mediation? And in your experience, what is the reaction to those foreign parties to this approach?
I cannot hear you quite well.
Oh, you can read it, actually. I'll do it again. Yeah. Is that most PRC mediation you encountered are quasi-judicial mediation? And in your experience, what is the reaction to those foreign parties to this approach?
Sorry, I still cannot hear you quite well. Let me see.
Can you see online?
The mediation you encounter, yes, quasi-judicial mediation. How, in your experience, the reaction of those parties to this approach? I have to say, quasi-judicial mediation is quite popular. It is Chinese culture, especially in court proceedings. If the amount is not huge of construction dispute, it's not huge. Lowest instance court, normally the first instance court, a county court or district court, will set 1 month period for mediation specifically. Then, lawyers will also participate in the court mediation. This is a pre-litigation mediation, which does solve number of disputes. But the difficulty is if the case is big enough, the quasi-judicial mediation or the commercial mediation you are familiar with in the rest of the world may not work in China. The reason is quite difficult to find a mediator that can be recognized, his or her qualification can be recognized by the parties in disputes. And also, it will be difficult to, conduct conventional commercial mediation if it's similar, as you said, quasi-judicial mediation in China, because we have no, a set of gameplay rules, not like Hong Kong. Hong Kong Arbitration Council, have a set of mediation guidance rules, and they will, provide training programs. I personally participated before the COVID, and also, people will need to pass the examinations before can be qualified as a mediator. So in China, more mediation, or most mediation, are conducted by, the court or arbitration tribunals. But people like us, practicing lawyers, we are trying to promote quasi-judicial mediation. It will help the courts and the arbitration tribunal, arbitration institutions to decrease the cases, they are handling. And you cannot imagine in China a court judge, a civil court judge, need to conclude more than 300 cases per year. It's incredibly, unbelievable if, comparing with their counterparts in the rest of the world. So I think quasi-judicial mediation will be more and more, but currently it's not the most.
Thank you, Mr. Gao. Due to the time constraint, I think that's the end of the Q&A session. Ladies and gentlemen, please show our appreciation to our speaker here today. Again.
Thank you everyone. Thank you for your time.